This is an AWA Collective production.
You're listening to the All-In Wellness Approach podcast.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Aubrey.
We're the bridge between knowing better
and actually doing better.
From empowering information
to real-life practical application.
This is your wellness, your life. So just one question.
Are you ready to go all in? Welcome to the hangar.
Yeah. Today's going to be fun because I get to interview you, which is my favorite thing to do, is to put the spotlight on how awesome you are. But it's also a challenge because I know you, but I want the world to know you. So trying to get through the base of who you are, what you do, where we are, which is in this really great space. So if you're watching on YouTube, then you get to see that we are sitting in front of an airplane because Aubrey is a pilot. So instead of me telling the world who you are you and what do you do?
My company is Aubrey Air LLC, and I manage and fly private jets for corporate aviation. I provide aircraft management, professional pilot services. I've been doing that for almost 2 decades. And then my most recent endeavor actually is a hot air balloon company that my husband and I do on the weekends. We provide commercial rides, and we do a lot of photo shoots and wedding opportunities. We do a lot of fundraisers at local schools for kids just to get more educational background on all of that. Big reason why we're talking today in this is surrounding the wellness community is that I've never lived in a 9-to-5 life. My company, my job, everything that I do is built on weather windows, travel, and my clients' needs.
Before we get into what your life is now, the question I get a lot when I tell people, oh yeah, my best friend's a pilot, is they want to know the journey to get to here. So from little Aubrey dreaming about what she wants to do when she grows up and that journey to get to today sitting in the seats.
Okay. So since I was 4 years old, I wanted to be an astronaut, and this is how far I got. It's a core memory. The Goodyear blimp had landed in Groseal, Michigan on the island, and I was just mesmerized by anything that was in the air. You know, when you're up close to something, this is huge, and this big thing gets off the earth. How does this defy gravity? And when I was 4, I knew I wanted to be in the sky. Literally, my head was in the clouds the whole time growing up. And so my mom always took me seriously and supported that. And maybe 5th grade, when they're like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, I'd say I want to be a pilot. And my teachers didn't take me seriously. Adults didn't. They're, oh, so you want to be a flight attendant? Or how about you be a science teacher? They were always pushing me into a more feminine role. I want to be a pilot. I want to fly airplanes. And so I remember one day I went home really upset from career day, and I told my mom, everyone asks what I want to be when I grow up, and then they say that I can't be that, and I don't understand. I just did not understand gender differentiation and career roles and things at that age. And so my mom sat me down, and this is another core memory, and it has stuck with me for so long. She said, Aubrey, you can't be anything you want to be when you grow up. And I just looked at her shocked. What do you mean? And she said, you can be anything you're willing to be when you grow up, because the difference between want and will is the amount of sacrifice you're willing to make to get what you want. And that was a whole lot for a 5th grader to
comprehend.
Yeah. And I didn't really understand it, but as I got older and the more that people told me no, I'm like, watch me. It did come with sacrifice, though. I mean, fast forward now through high school and still having the same dream. Then my dream turned to military. My dream was to be the first woman Blue Angel. And the fact that I've gotten to see that in my lifetime, which it wasn't me, sorry, I'm very, very proud. And it was amazing to see the first female Blue Angel actually come to fruition. But I wanted to be in the military. I got it on a partial scholarship for athletics into Eastern Michigan University, which is how we met.
Eagles.
Yeah, go Eagles. On the cheerleading squad. Anyway, they had an aviation program that was up and coming. It was just starting out. It was kind of a trial program at the university. My favorite saying is, man plans and God laughs. I had all these grandiose plans to go to Embry-Riddle or University of Michigan, all these other big aeronautics, aerospace, flight schools, things like that.
Big prestigious programs.
Yeah, which also comes with a bigger price tag. And even with scholarship, it was you're not going to afford that. But then I got recruited by the Eastern cheerleading squad and I made it. And then they were like, by the way, there's an aviation program starting. Okay, God, I hear you. I guess I'm going to Eastern. It kept me a little close to home for some of the support that I needed, not realizing this is where the sacrifice comes in. Women in aviation is literally at 7, maybe pushing 8% in the world are females flying. I was really isolated, and Social media was not a big thing in college. Like
No.
Facebook had just started.
Yep.
But I did not realize there was other women out there. And the more that I pushed, the more it just seemed like the door was closing for the military. And so I was like, okay, God, I hear you again. I stayed civilian, and I started slowly but surely finding support in people outside of aviation. This is where our blonde entourage was born, and I met all of my lovely, beautiful women that are still in my life to this day that were all in my wedding, you included in that.
And what's kind of cool about us, I think that was the thorough line, was that we were all in more male-dominated fields.
We could resonate together on that. We were always underestimated.
We had to earn our place.
Yes.
We had to make room. We had to prove ourselves.
And this is one of the things that the up-and-coming women in aviation, I mentor them on what I like to call the double-edged sword theory. And it's that you're noticed first. Yes. And everybody says you get so many other better opportunities, and you got that just because you're a girl. The minority thing kills me. Because you're a minority in this field, you're a female. One side of the sword, if I'm presented this opportunity, I'm going to take it and run with it.
Yes.
Because I've already put up with all of the BS behind the scenes. The other side of that sword, however, that I tell these young ladies is you better fly faster, further, harder, sharper than the man next to you. You better do it with grace and kindness and respect. You give no bull, but you take no shit. That is my big thing for them. Speaking with you women and growing up in the university space and having that support system, we were able to just like conquer the world behind our coffee mugs on early morning chats, and
we had each other because you felt very lonely and isolated in the aviation, and we all kind of felt that. So we created our own little group where we may not be in the same field, but we can still relate with similar situations that come up and similar frustrations. And so we didn't feel so alone anymore.
Yeah.
We may not be able to tap into our career space, but we can come and tap in with each other.
Yes.
That is just pure admiration, no competition, want to see you soar, pun intended, and then be able to go back into those spaces stronger, more professional, more confident. So we've kind of talked about the beginning parts of your journey, caught up to where you were in college. You graduated and you got an opportunity. What was that opportunity?
You have to build your flight time in order to be valuable in the professional aviation space. I was invited to an aerial survey group out of Rome, New York. I basically lived in a Cessna 172, and every 2 weeks they relocated us to a different city to take photos for various companies. January 2011, my plane broke down in East Texas. I met all the guys at the airport, and they're like, let's see what she's made of. And so they were like, you should move down to East Texas and work for the oil fields. Well, I was going home to a failing economy and no job opportunities after my tour with the survey company. I packed up what little I had, and huge blessings from my supporting friends and family. And they said, we love you. We're going to miss you, but go.
I thought I was going to be throwing a coming home party, and I had to throw another going away party.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
No, it worked out just fine.
Yes. Again, another man plans, God laughs kind of situation. I moved down here in 2011. I started my company in 2012. I fly mainly for the oil field. I've flown for law firms, things like that, but it's very cyclical. And the first thing to go when things get tough is the private flying. And the first thing to come back when there's an oil boom is the private flying. So we can kind of predict what the economic cycle is going to be. I ended up just strictly going contract and got out of the aircraft management because it was a little unstable at the time. And there was some really good money in contract flying. I got up to about like 32 clients nationwide where I was airlining. I would airline to a plane, I would fly that client, that trip would be done, and I would airline to the next plane from that location. I lived on the road for something like 3 months before, and I was maybe home twice within those 3 months.
Yeah. I remember trying to squeeze in phone calls in between, which then kind of brings us into, you live this really awesome career life, but how are you able to have the balance, take care of yourself, sleep properly, fuel properly? For you to be able to properly fly a plane, your health has to be in check too. Let's talk about your health journey a little bit, from flying the contracts or from flying survey to now.
Yeah, so 2018 was really the year that the contract really took off. Another pun. Because I was on the road like that, and I was in charge of my own schedule, which is kind of the kicker there. I could say no. If then all of a sudden was driven by money and metal, I want to fly the bigger planes, I need the hours in order to do that. I want the bigger clients and I want the financials. Like I was just on literally autopilot. The puns are killing me today. My health deteriorated so bad so quickly. I was gaining weight because I was sitting for hours on end. And growing up from childhood, I've always had an irregular cycle, and doctors just wanted to band-aid it with birth control. And so it's like, all right, birth control, birth control. Okay, this one started not working. Let's try this one. So when you're pumping hormones essentially into your body, that can take a toll on your weight and your insulin levels and things like that. Add on to that equation, eating on the road, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then sitting hours on end, whether you're airlining or flying in an aircraft or sitting at an FBO. A private terminal is what a fixed base operation is, an FBO. By the time a year comes around, 45 pounds looks like a lot on a 5'2" person. And not only from the physical visualization of being overweight, but what it made me feel like inside was physically exhausting. It started disrupting my sleep. It started hurting my cycles even worse. I became a shell of a human. This is my life. Let's get up and let's have the coffee and let's go eat the bagel down in the hotel lobby and let's get to the airport because there's another place to go.
And you justified taking the physical hits because you just saw the dollars. Like, okay, I'll just keep going because this is fine.
Just keep your head down low and work.
I think the first fallout that I know of, and this is just because I was involved in it, was 2018. You had come to visit me and I had sat you down in one of our favorite little coffee shops and I was like, you gotta get this together. You have to restructure, you have to know your worth. So talk about what
I looked successful on the surface, but my health was slipping. I had no cycle. I started developing pelvic pain, which was probably added to the weight that was on my shoulders and the weight gain physically. There's a huge health community around aviation for sure because we have to get a class 1, 2, or 3 medicals. We get a flight physical basically every year to keep our airspace safe and to keep our pilots safe and regulated and everything else.
What did you do to then start regulating yourself? So from a career standpoint, I remember we talked about setting up contract with a main client. So career-wise, you had to get your schedule more stable so that then you could implement actual health things.
You actually were one of the biggest pillar turning points in that health journey. You told me I was killing myself and that if I didn't make a change, I was going to lose more than my pilot certificate because that's all I whined about to you. But I can't, I can't afford it. I need the money and I can't go to the doctor because what if they find something? It's always a what if game. You sat me down and you said, Aubrey, the answer to the next person that calls you is no. You said no stands for next opportunity. And that has stuck with us. We've always said that to each other ever since that very day. The word no is a full sentence. You do not owe anybody an explanation. And the word no stands for next opportunity.
For you to have that comfort to say that, trust in God that there will be a next opportunity. And if you take a moment to say no because you need to rest or take care of yourself now, then you'll be better suited for when that next opportunity comes.
Again, another God thing. The moment that I said no, one of the clients I had been contracting for called me and he's like, hey, I want to buy an airplane. And I said, okay, I'll help you do that. So I found him an airplane. I worked from home. I made a little money. I am slowly getting refreshed being in some sort of scheduled environment, at least sleeping in my own bed consistently each night with home cooked meals. Then he turns around, he's like, I need a pilot. Can you please do it? And so we came up with this agreement and I paid my dues enough and I built my flight hours enough that I was like, wow, I can pick my trips. I can pick my clients. Okay. I had no idea that would ever exist. And so I went into the next chapter of life and that allowed me the room to breathe, to have stability. I started getting my life back. I really implemented and held on to the no means next opportunity. And I was able to cherry pick my clients and actually set up my company to do more aircraft management to allow myself to be home and then kind of cherry pick my trips and then also start mentoring to get other pilots opportunities to fly, which I love paying it forward in the industry. It's my most favorite thing. Not a single one of us has gotten to where we were at without the help of another person, no matter what you do in life, especially if you're successful at it. Besides that, it allowed me the financial stability to provide my own health insurance. I then decided, okay, the yo-yoing and the pains and the exhaustion, there's something that needs to be addressed and mainly to be safe. I went to the doctor and got labs drawn. I said, listen, these are my symptoms. It wasn't something that was going to prevent me from safely doing my job. It was just annoying. These are pretty harsh cramps, or I'm just extra tired even though I slept all night.
So how did you look at organizing that for yourself?
When I went to the doctor, they take the labs and they say, oh, your numbers fall within a potential pre-diabetes range, and we have a medication for that. My heart dropped. My palm started shaking. The word diabetes is all I heard, and medication. And then the whole thing that flashed before my eyes was that my entire investment, my entire career, my entire being that I've made aviation is gone. I said, I'm done. This is not happening. I wanted to throw up. I thought I was going to lose everything I worked so hard for, and I'm so proud of. And it's more than a career for me. It's my life. I love what I do.
So you told me how you had to look at it at that point was then you would always take care of your plane, right? You would never miss a maintenance check, but your body is different. So you told me that you just started looking at your body and your health like how you look at a plane.
It was a lot of self-reflection, because now that I have this whole potential of me physically shutting down, it messed with me emotionally. I was developing anxiety because now how am I going to support my family, things like that. If there's a problem, then you have to educate yourself to develop the solution. I had to take back the narrative. I was taking care of my clients and my airplanes better than I was taking care of myself, and that was not okay. If I treat my airplanes and my clients so well, why can't I treat myself that good also?
That's how most people are navigate life. They'll do that for everybody else, but they cannot apply it to themselves. So how did you start applying it to yourself?
I basically, so there's two ways to invest in an aircraft, right? You have your initial buy-in cost. And when you're buying an airplane, you have to do a pre-buy inspection. This is so funny. I cannot believe I'm sharing this. So what that is you take an airplane to a mechanic who is well versed on the internal workings and components and engines, and they basically pick this plane apart and tell you everything that's wrong with it. And so you're putting yourself really out there, putting the mirror on you. So what do? You have to advocate to find the right medical personnel. Like, listen, I don't want you to tell me how to fix it. I just want you to tell me what's wrong with it. And that meant investing and demanding the labs that I wanted, doing the research and saying, okay, you ran these labs. I want this panel. I want all of my hormones labs ran. I want my sugar levels. I want a stress test. I want an EEG, EKG. I want the whole work.
I tell people you wouldn't expect a chemist to just go into a lab and start mixing things together if the beakers don't have labels, right? They could blow their face off. Why do we do it to our body? You have no idea what your labs are. And this starts from teenage years when you just get thrown on birth control. I didn't get labs before I did. You have to understand what your chemistry set is, what your beaker labels are, to know then how to mix things together and what is needed or missing or what you need to add to your medical journey. So for a plane, you have a maintenance manual. We're excited to share, especially you because you created it, is the maintenance manual for your body.
I had decided that, all right, if I've got a maintenance logbook and manual for an aircraft, then why don't I have one for my body? We go to the doctor so many times, and how many times have you actually sat down and taken notes early on before you knew better? Yeah, I actually brought it with me so I can tell you what's in it. The front of my body maintenance manual, it's got name, date of birth, if I have any allergies, my blood type, emergency contacts, my primary care provider, just like all the emergency stuff on top of it. And then on the inside, I have an appointments log. This is for anything from going to get a facial to going to the eye doctor to Botox to you name it. It is in here. And doctors don't talk to each other. So if I want to go to my OBGYN, they only care about these labs, but they're not going to go tell my GP, what my labs were. So then they're going to draw more labs. And that actually ultimately has saved me money. I also have any imaging that I had, my EEG, EKG, heart stuff. And then I also have my family medical history. There's a spot for medications and supplements because I don't take many medications, but I do take a multivitamin, a fish oil.
So getting it really dialed into what your exact chemistry is using this log, because then you can say, oh, hey, here's my actual number. Take this into a doctor that may not know because they didn't draw those labs, but you're like, I've got them. And then it helps them to be more successful and you have a full picture of it.
This is all, same thing with airplanes, preventative maintenance. If you can be really in tune with your body and find these little things, then you can prevent being pre-diabetic. Try to supplement with food first, and then if that's not enough, then go to supplements. And then talk to your doctor about what's a clean supplement. There is a time and place when it's medically necessary, but make sure you make that doctor do their job. Make them educate you, because there's so many times where you're in there for 15 minutes and then they just want to get you out the door.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
You got to dig deeper so that you understand it and help them to navigate too. Well, this other doctor that you sent me to said this, or there just has to be a fuller picture.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you are the artist that is responsible for that picture. Yeah. So this helps you to keep it all in one place, which is awesome. I'm excited for you to share this.
Your body is an investment and it's worth it. And I know it's money and everybody's at a different variation and stage financially, but figure yourself out. Know yourself physically and mentally, emotionally, what's going on in your environment. Once you have your total picture, now you've bought your airplane, you know your airplane inside and out. So you invested in your body, you know your body inside and out. What do you do to critique and fix those things that have been found to bring you to optimum level of performance? And what does the operating cost look like? So now you've got to run the machine, right? Just like airplanes, you got to put fuel in them, and it has to be the right kind of fuel, and you have to have preventative maintenance done on them to keep them running smooth. Same thing for us. So physical conditioning programs, dietary needs, supplemental protocols, hiring a counselor or a life coach for personal growth, relationship support, things like that. Investing in your food is really big, because food, again, is medicine, and that's something you've taught me. Investing every month into boot camp or my at-home gym has been detrimental to, again, my recurring operating costs. So if you think you can't afford the gym membership, can you afford the medical bill? If you think you can't afford the food, can you afford the medication? You pick and choose your battles with that.
I'd rather have really yummy food than have to choke down a bunch of pills every day. And you're going to pay for either one.
And then let alone throw that in my world.
That you can't.
That I can't. I took back my own health. I advocated for myself. I demanded the right knowledge and the time from my medical providers. I refused to take the medication until they gave me a better alternative. If it really came down to it, if I tried eating for 3 to 6 months and I did a certain dietary exercise, all that stuff, and I still had had a really serious underlying condition, then it's time to hang up my wings.
Or rest.
Yeah.
Just take a break.
Yeah.
Just take a minute. It doesn't have to be all or none. Find a way to just rest and recover, and then you can get back on it. We've gone over your maintenance manual for yourself, your initial buy-in costs, and then regular operating costs. Best laid plans, right? Life gets busy. Something happens to our spouses that throw us off, because then we have to take care of them. How do you get back into your balance again?
Most beautiful thing I have learned is getting back to a core foundation, and that's going to look different for everybody.
Takes a lot of self-reflection to get to this point.
It really does. You and I used to call it the core four. We realized that it was a series of 4 topics that had to be done in order, but we were looking at them in a straight line. And now that we've grown in our wisdom, I realized that it's a compass. It's a full circle thing. So I'd like to coin it the all-in compass. It's a 4-part wellness framework developed by us, I guess. And then we're going to present this whole thing to the AWA collective and to this podcast. So this framework has to be followed in a specific order. And if you don't do it in this order, it kind of crumbles the whole compass. It doesn't work. The first point is your faith, and that's your inner grounding and sense of meaning. Whatever your spiritual connection is, personal beliefs, your core values, it starts with your faith. It guides you how to show up and what to say yes to, and when to know that no means next opportunity. I do this every morning. This might be something that you only check in with weekly or monthly, but I have to start this every single day. My faith comes first. When my feet hit the ground, I want the devil to say, oh no, here we go again.
What do you do to check that box, the faith box?
Right now, my husband and I are actually both doing 2 different devotionals every morning. And it doesn't matter if we have the time or not. If he has to, like, if he gets going late and needs to drive, I will call him and say, okay, it's time for me to read you this devotional. And then if I'm flying, he'll snap a picture of it and send it to me. So when I land and I turn my phone back on, I'm like, all right, it's devotional time. So it's just getting into a habit. There's days that it's going to feel like you're going through the motions, and there's days that it's going to resonate and hit, and it becomes a secondary thing. Now we've been doing it for so long together that our day almost feels like it can't start until we say that quick prayer while we're brushing our teeth or actually digging into our one-page devotional. And doing it together with a community also helps.
And we'll link those resources for everybody if you're curious and if you're searching for how to get that faith piece.
So we got faith. The second thing is going to be fuel. What's the next thing that everyone needs every day, daily, is what you put in your body. Your body is a walking billboard of what you're putting into it and what you're doing to it. And I don't want to be a trashy billboard. I also don't want to feel like a billboard that's been through a freaking tornado.
The fuel piece too, again, taking it back to your plane analogy, is you wouldn't expect this plane to run properly without proper fuel. But we do that to our bodies, and our bodies is one of the most amazing machines ever. So being able to look at it from not good, bad things to eat, it's no, just how do I properly fuel myself?
Yes, making sure that I set aside the time, whether it means having to do that extra effort to meal prep before a week of flying or at work, or actually spending the quality time to make a meal with my husband and then making extras for leftovers the next day. And even for you, one thing we've had to do, and I know you and your husband are currently doing it, is investing in a meal prepping company in order to have all your meals for that week during a busy week. So what energizes your body and mind, and then fueling yourself with nutrition and movement. So the other part of that fuel is building up that muscle and just get your body moving. Never miss a Monday and get your body moving. If I can do a full workout, great. If I have 6 minutes to do my band burn in the hotel room and that's all I have the energy for, I still moved my body. If it means a 10-minute walk with my dogs and I have to be gentle with myself that day, just move your machinery. If a plane sits too long in a hangar, it's going to start leaking. They are meant to run. Our bodies are the same way. Our bodies are meant to work and run. So you have to get them moving.
So fuel, what's next?
Third thing is family. Family and friends, my other two favorite F words. Where two or more gather, there he is, and two are better than one. We are meant to thrive in a community, and you have to have the right support group. And that goes for close friendships. It also provides your emotional safety, right? We need, like, the Maslow's theory of hierarchy and everything that falls in that. We need safety. We need to establish boundaries. People that you surround yourself with need to respect those boundaries. And basically, it's the environment you create to maintain yourself in. Who are you letting in your circle?
I think family is another word for love. It's another form of fuel almost too. We run on love. And so if your family is a loving, safe place, if your friendships are a loving, safe place, if all of your relationships are, then it is another way to fuel you to work optimally.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes with your environment. So we have faith, fuel, family, and I do those things daily in that order for a reason. Because if I have not got my mind right first thing, and I have not properly fueled and exercised my body next at some point within the day, then who am I physically and emotionally to show up for my family? They're not going to get an optimum version of me, which is going to then shortchange the relationships and stunt the relationships' growth. If you can keep those three in those orders and pay mindful attention to those as best you can every day, your fortune falls into place. And that's your work, income, energy exchange. The fortune is the fourth one. So that's where your career direction, money mindset, business, job alignment, all that stuff falls into play. And that actually happens naturally. That brings it full circle back to your faith. And that's the all-encompass.
And I think what's crazy about this is if we go the backwards way, I think the majority of people have these core four or this all-encompass, but they do it in the reverse. They have fortune as their number one, family as their second, fuel as their third, and faith takes a back seat for sure. So we're flipping the script and saying, no, you were doing it in the wrong order. Other things will feed into them properly, because when you've been doing it the backwards way, when you've been trying to do fortune, then there's not enough room for the rest of it because you're so focused on that does not actually fuel your soul. And that seems so big and exhausting that the rest of it, you're just like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow or the
Guilty.
next day, right?
Guilty. That's how I ended up almost losing my career and my health and my everything.
You did this in the complete upside down.
I was
order.
putting my job first, and then whatever little energy I had left was going to my friends and family. And from there, I was fueling whatever I could find, scrounge up on the road, whatever free candy and popcorn and things that were in the FBOs. That's what I would live off of. And then I'm too tired to even pray. I mean, I wasn't even moving my body. So that's a really good point, and I'm sorry to say that I was guilty of that.
It comes full circle to everything that we've talked about today, because it was. When you were just so worried about the fortune piece because so much money to become a pilot, that was your fear, right? And your fear becomes your focus. So you were so afraid that financially you were not going to be able to provide for yourself. And so that was your numero uno. And that made you feel safe because that was something that had been missing before in your life. When you really break it down and the wisdom of getting older and realizing that if you do these other things, then the fortune piece will take care of itself because you will be able to show up more optimal, which means then you may not have to work as often because then you've created this optimal version of yourself.
Working smarter, not harder.
It's coined in our culture, especially here in the US, that there is this vibrato, this pride, this ego that comes with being like, oh, but I work so hard. I'm so busy. I work.
We really need to flip that in our culture.
We've gotten you to this point. You're in such a great space with all of these kill safes to help keep you on track with your health and with your career and relationships. But what are you going all in on right now? Big or small? It doesn't have to be, super poetic.
Okay, I'll give you two answers.
Okay.
So I'll give you a little bit of a deep answer.
I love it.
Right now, it's consistently doing a baby life audit, going through baby life audits and going, okay, next week I am going to be flying. And then the week after that, we start up our fly fishing trips and I'm going to be gone for 5 days, home for 2, gone for 5. What can I do now to prepare when my cup is empty at the end of those flying trips? What can I work out extra? Can I be eating a little cleaner now and make the best decisions I can, things like that. So baby life audits is kind of like my deep answer and kind of organizing what those look like. With that, it kind of ties in, but what I'm really all in on is I broke up with my Apple Watch and I went over to Garmin. Holy cow. This thing is made for pilot performance and athletic performance and like understanding and optimizing tools, right? So these are the fun things that you have your recurring investment in your body, because now this is going to help with my health and some variation.
Part of your new maintenance plan.
So I'm all in on baby life audits and Garmin watches.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. I still think I learned new things about you, even though I've known you for, I think we calculated that it's 18 years now. And thank you for bringing us to the hangar and sharing this cool space and the plane. And we'll see everybody on the next episode.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Side effects of listening to this podcast may include spontaneous personal breakthroughs, increased confidence to do hard things, and occasional uncontrollable inspiration. If these symptoms persist, congratulations, you're officially all in. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, or substitute professional advice or medical guidance. Always consult your physician, therapist, or qualified provider before making changes to your wellness, nutrition, fitness, or mental health routines. Thank you for joining us on the All-In Wellness Approach. For more information on the AWOL Collective, upcoming episodes, or to connect with our community, visit awolcollective.com or follow us on socials. That's AIWA Collective.com. See you next time.